What happens when a royal steps into the lion's den and the queen of daytime TV decides she's not playing nice anymore? The lights blazed across the sleek, glossy set of The View, casting a warm golden glow on the semi-circular couch where five of television's most recognizable hosts sat poised for another day of spirited debate. The stage crew moved swiftly, silently, adjusting cameras and mic levels, preparing for what was supposed to be a standard celebrity interview. Prince Harry had arrived 30 minutes early, flanked by a small team of publicists and security. He looked polished, every inch the statesman, tailored navy suit, polished brown Oxfords, and the practiced smile of someone well acquainted with diplomacy. The plan was simple: promote his upcoming documentary on mental health and discuss his ongoing philanthropic work. Nothing controversial, nothing raw. But this wasn't BBC Breakfast. This was The View. And Whoopi Goldberg, legendary actress, activist, and unfiltered firecracker, wasn't interested in staying polite for politeness' sake. Going live in 5, a stagehand called out. 4, Harry adjusted his posture, offering a soft smile to the hosts. 3, Whoopi leaned in just slightly, her script cards resting idly in her lap. 2, welcome back to The View, everyone, Joy Behar began, her voice cheery as ever. We have a very special guest today. You know him, you've watched his journey unfold in the headlines, on your screens, and now in a brand new documentary. Please welcome Prince Harry. The applause cue lit up, and the audience responded with a polite but hesitant ovation. As Harry walked on set and shook hands with the hosts, something imperceptible shifted in the air. He was charming but guarded, smiling but not relaxed. Prince Harry, wonderful to have you here, Whoopi said as he took a seat beside her. Thank you for having me, Whoopi. It's always a pleasure. The first few minutes rolled by predictably. Harry spoke earnestly about mental health, his Invictus Games work, and the documentary's mission. The host nodded respectfully, interjecting with soft questions. But Whoopi, she waited. She didn't smile. She didn't coo. She didn't validate. Then, as Harry finished a thought on the emotional toll of public scrutiny, Whoopi leaned in. Harry, she said, her tone still smooth, but carrying a weight like a hammer in velvet. You've been very outspoken about wanting privacy, but you're here, on this show, talking about your life, promoting a documentary about your life. How do you reconcile that? A flicker, barely noticeable, passed across Harry's face, a twitch in the corner of his mouth. His publicist, seated just off camera, sat up straighter. I think there's a difference, Harry began, between choosing to share your truth and having it taken from you. But truth isn't exclusive, is it? Whoopi pressed, folding her hands. You say your truth a lot. Doesn't that mean someone else's truth, your brother's, your father's, might look very different? Maybe even contradictory? The air tensed. Alyssa shifted in her seat. Sonny looked toward the control booth. Joy raised her eyebrows. Harry kept his composure. Everyone is entitled to their perspective, but I've lived what I've lived. I've spoken my experiences. That's not a contradiction. It's authenticity. Whoopi tilted her head, almost like a predator assessing prey. And what about the fact that your family, the very people you speak about, can't respond the way you do? They don't come on TV shows. They don't sit for interviews. They don't sign Netflix deals. The shot to the gut was subtle, but effective. Harry's smile evaporated. Joy tried to steer things gently. I think people are also just fascinated by how different your life is now, Harry. California, chickens, therapy. The audience chuckled weakly. But Whoopi didn't let go. You talk about healing, she said, but you're constantly reopening the wound. Publicly. How is that helping? And just like that, the temperature dropped. Harry's jaw flexed. I speak about pain because silence is how it festers, because people who are suffering deserve to know they're not alone. But isn't that selective? Whoopi said, now fully turning to face him. You chose to leave. You chose to write the book. You chose to go on Oprah. So why act surprised when people question your motives? A beat of silence. The room held its breath. I'm not surprised, Harry said tightly. I'm disappointed. the audience murmured. And yet, Whoopi said, eyes gleaming, you keep showing up. For someone who's disappointed in the public, you sure do spend a lot of time talking to them. That landed harder than anything that had come before. Harry leaned forward, his voice low but sharp. I show up for the causes, for the people I care about, for the work, not for this circus. Then why are you here? Whoopi asked flatly. Another silence, one that crackled with electricity. Because I thought you'd ask better questions, Harry replied. There it was, not a royal clapback, a royal challenge. Joy opened her mouth to redirect. Too late. Whoopi narrowed her eyes. Boy, you better watch your tone. Time stopped. It was like the studio air had been sucked out of the room. Harry blinked, slowly. The word hung in the air like a slur, like a slap. Not just the word, the weight behind it. Excuse me? He said, each syllable carved from ice. The audience gasped. Even Sunny looked stunned. Alyssa put her hand to her mouth, but Whoopi didn't blink. You heard me. And in that moment, the warmth that had once lingered in Harry's eyes disappeared. The smile that once masked the tension shattered. The real man, the wounded man, stepped forward. His voice was steel. I came here in good faith. I came here to speak with honesty. But you want a spectacle. You made it one, Whoopi snapped. No, Harry said, rising from his chair. You did. The scraping sound of his chair on the studio floor was deafening. The producers began waving frantically behind the cameras. The audience was dead silent. The other hosts frozen. You know what this is? Harry said, his voice rising. It's not journalism. It's not discourse. It's performance. And I'm not your act. He reached for the mic clipped to his lapel. Harry, please, Joy stammered. Let's take a break. But Harry wasn't listening. You wanted a headline? He said. You just got it. He unclipped the mic, dropped it on the cushion, and turned toward the edge of the set. Whoopi stood too. This is live TV. You can't just walk out. Harry paused, half turning. Watch me. And with that, Prince Harry, Duke of Sussex, veteran, royal exile, and now disillusioned guest, walked off the set of The View, leaving behind a stunned studio, a blinking audience, and one host who, for the first time in a very long time, didn't have the last word. The moment Prince Harry disappeared behind the curtain, the studio dissolved into chaos. The audience, unsure if what they had just witnessed was real or scripted, sat stunned in complete silence. A few people nervously laughed. Others looked around, searching for direction. From anyone. In the control room, red lights flashed across monitors. Producers scrambled with headsets, barking orders to switch camera angles and prepare for an emergency commercial break. But no one knew what the next shot should be. Should they follow Harry, cut to a panel reaction, or keep the camera on Whoopi, who stood motionless at center stage, her jaw tight, eyes following the exit long after Harry had gone? It had happened so fast, and yet not fast at all. The tension had been building since the first pointed question. And now they had a live scandal on their hands. Joy Behar, ever the professional, cleared her throat, her voice shaking slightly. We're going to take a short break, folks. She glanced to the wings, looking for confirmation, but there was none. Whoopi finally sat down. Her posture was rigid, as if bracing for impact. She didn't speak. She didn't smile. She didn't blink. The show did not go to commercial. Instead, the cameras lingered for a few more painful seconds, enough for audiences across the country to see the unraveling in real time. Alyssa leaned in towards Sunny, whispering something the mics barely caught. He's gone. And then, finally, a cut to black. Backstage, Harry paced the narrow hallway behind the set, his fists clenched so tight his knuckles were white. His publicist, Carla, trailed behind him, frantically trying to keep up. Harry, wait, you can't just leave. We need to— I'm not going back out there, he snapped. Not after that. I get it, Carla said gently, glancing at the passing crew members who were trying not to stare. But the story is already spiraling. You have to at least do some kind of statement. He turned on her, face flushed with rage. She called me boy on national television. I know, and it was wrong, Carla replied, steady and calm. But if you walk away without saying anything, it's going to look like you lost control. Harry's chest heaved. I did lose control. Did you see her? Did you hear her? She wasn't interviewing me. She was baiting me. Every word she said was designed to provoke. Carla nodded slowly. And you rose to it, which is exactly what's going to go viral. That stopped him. For a moment, just a flicker of clarity passed through the haze of anger. You think I should apologize? No, she said firmly, but I think you should tell your side, calmly, before they tell it for you. Meanwhile, on set, the show returned from break to a wide shot of the panel. The atmosphere was completely different now. No laughter, no crosstalk, no light banter, just tension, thick and electric. Whoopi sat with her arms crossed, staring at the camera. Joy took the lead, but even her voice had lost its usual cheer. We want to acknowledge what just happened on air. Prince Harry chose to leave the set after what became a very passionate, and at times difficult, conversation. Whoopi didn't look at her co-hosts. She didn't look at the camera. She was somewhere else entirely, inside her own mind, calculating. Sunny shifted awkwardly. These are complex topics. Emotions can run high. Alyssa added, and while we always aim to have open, honest discussions, sometimes things escalate in ways no one expects. The tension grew with every word that danced around the obvious. And then Whoopi spoke. I don't regret asking the questions, she said quietly but firmly. We bring people here to talk. If they can't handle tough conversations, they shouldn't come. Joy hesitated. But do you think maybe the wording was, he wanted a platform, Whoopi interrupted, and he got one. If he didn't like the heat, he shouldn't have walked into the kitchen. The words fell like stones, not just defiant, but final. But even as Whoopi doubled down behind her bravado, a storm was brewing. She had felt the shift too the moment she used that word, boy. She hadn't meant it racially, she would say later. She'd meant it as in immature, entitled, petulant. But context didn't care about intention. Not in today's world, and certainly not on live television. Online, 20 minutes later, the internet was already on fire. Clips of the exchange were circulating like wildfire on Twitter, TikTok, and Instagram. The hashtag Harry vs. Whoopi was trending globally. Two camps emerged immediately. One defending Harry, calling out Whoopi's aggression and her boy comment is unacceptable. The other applauded Whoopi's no-nonsense approach, claiming Harry had finally been asked the tough questions he avoided elsewhere. Memes flooded social media, screenshots of Harry's stunned expression, edits of Whoopi's stare-down, tweets like, did Whoopi really just call Prince Harry boy on live TV? Nah, she woke up and chose violence. Harry finally met a woman who wasn't afraid to talk back. Whoopi just did what the Queen never could. All that royal training, undone by one question from Whoopi. Yikes. But it wasn't just fans and trolls chiming in. Piers Morgan tweeted a gleeful one-liner. Welcome to the real world, Harry. Whoopi didn't bow. Get used to it. Oprah, silent. The royal family, no comment. But the world was watching. Back in Harry's dressing room, he sat now, slumped slightly in a chair, a bottle of water in one hand, the other pressed against his forehead. The adrenaline was crashing, leaving only exhaustion. Carla sat across from him, typing on her phone. They want you to come back tomorrow. Solo. Just you and a one-on-one with Joy. Harry looked up slowly. Are they mad? They're desperate. Ratings have never been higher, he scoffed. Of course they are. Pain is profitable. Carla lowered her phone. What do you want to do? He didn't answer for a long time. Then, what do you think she wants? Whoopi? He nodded. Carla thought for a moment. She wants to be right. And what do I want? He asked, almost to himself. Carla met his eyes. That's the question only you can answer. Meanwhile, in her private green room, Whoopi sat alone, staring at the small TV monitor, replaying the final moments of the broadcast. Her own voice echoed back at her. Sit down, boy. She flinched, just a little. A soft knock at the door. Come in, she said. A producer peeked in. Do you want to release a statement? She looked up. Her eyes were steel. No, she said. Let the fire burn a little first. The morning after the broadcast, the world was not the same. The confrontation between Whoopi Goldberg and Prince Harry had exploded beyond the walls of the View studio. It wasn't just a TV moment anymore. It was the moment. The one people would reference for years. College media classes would dissect it. Op-eds would be written. Celebrities would awkwardly dodge questions about it on red carpets. Headlines screamed from every news app. Royal meltdown on live TV. CNN, Whoopi goes nuclear on Prince Harry. TM's Prince walks off, Goldberg versus Sussex. BBC, sit down, boy. The two words heard around the world. The Guardian. It wasn't about a documentary anymore. It wasn't about privacy, monarchy, or even family. It was about power, about who gets to ask questions and who's allowed to walk away from them. At Buckingham Palace, behind the tall wrought iron gates of the palace, advisors and aides gathered early. King Charles was reportedly not pleased. What did he think would happen? One aide muttered as she read through the overnight reports. Another replied, he thought Americans would be softer. Across the world, the British establishment saw what had happened not as a scandal, but as a humiliation. A prince of the realm, publicly dressed down by a TV host, his authority challenged, his composure broken. One senior official put it bluntly, he left England because he didn't want to play by our rules. But it turns out America has rules too. They're just louder. In California, Montecito Meghan Markle stood in their home kitchen, scrolling through social media on her tablet. The footage was everywhere. She had seen it already, but something compelled her to keep watching. Over and over, the moment Whoopi leaned forward, the word, Harry's face, his voice cracking, the walkout. Harry, she whispered under her breath. She wasn't angry. She wasn't surprised either. She was worried. Their strategy had always been based on controlled visibility. Speak when it mattered. Pick the platforms, shape the narrative. But yesterday they'd lost control completely. Back in New York, the View studio, crisis mode. The producers huddled in a tense morning meeting. Scripts lay abandoned. Talking points were irrelevant. This wasn't just another episode anymore. This was now an event. We need to respond, said the executive producer, Linda Park. Not just let social media dictate the story. Someone else chimed in, we can't issue a generic apology. Neither side will accept it. Another added, we've already had two major sponsors pull their ad slots. Silence, then. We need Whoopi on camera today. Directly. No panel, just her. Linda nodded. And Harry? The room paused. We're reaching out, but he hasn't responded. Whoopi's dressing room. The lights were dim. Her makeup chair remained untouched. She sat on the couch, a steaming cup of coffee in her hands, watching muted coverage of the fallout. Every channel, every platform, all her face, his voice, their battle. Her phone buzzed nonstop. Colleagues, friends, critics, strangers, some supportive, some vicious. A message blinked across her screen from an unknown number. You always were a bully in a wig. She locked the phone. There was a knock. Linda peeked in. They want you to speak, she said softly. Not just the audience. Everyone. Whoopi didn't respond for a moment. Then, eyes steady, she whispered, then let's talk. Backstage, later that morning, the audience was seated, buzzing with anticipation. Unlike yesterday's casual energy, today felt charged. Cameras were prepped, microphones double-checked. Security was tighter. Producers paced like generals before a battle. The theme music rolled. And then, a single chair at the center of the stage. Spotlight, no panel, just Whoopi. She walked out slowly, deliberately, and sat down. The audience applauded cautiously. She waited until it died down, then looked straight into the lens. Live broadcast. Whoopi speaks. Yesterday, something happened on this show. Something raw, something real, and something that, frankly, surprised even me. She took a breath. I want to start by saying this. I did not intend to disrespect Prince Harry. I invited him here because I believe in conversations that matter, because I believe in honesty, and because I thought we could have an adult discussion. A pause, but I used a word that in context was wrong. Not because of what I meant, but because of how it sounded, how it landed. And that's on me. The studio was dead quiet. I won't sit here and pretend I don't speak passionately. That's who I am. That's why I'm here. But words have weight, especially when they hit the wrong nerve. And yesterday, my words hurt someone. She looked down, then back up. I stand by my questions. I don't stand by the disrespect. A long breath, then a surprise. I've invited Prince Harry to return, to talk. Just the two of us. Off the panel. No performance. Just truth. The audience murmured. And then, fade to black. In Montecito, that same moment, Harry watched the speech from his living room, his phone face down on the coffee table. Meghan sat beside him, silent. As Whoopi's apology ended and the invite was extended, Harry remained still. Then after a long pause, he said, "She's good." Meghan turned. "She's giving you the stage back." He nodded, but his expression wasn't triumphant. It was conflicted. "She's giving me the stage," he whispered. "But do I must stand on it?" Online. Immediately after, Whoopi apologizes trends within minutes. Some applaud her maturity. Others accuse her of damage control. Still others wait, wanting to see what Harry will do. But one question begins to dominate the conversation everywhere. Will he go back that night? Harry's private study. The house was quiet. The sun dipped below the hills. Harry sat at his desk, staring at a blank notebook. No laptop, no phone, just ink and paper. He scribbled one word: respect. He stared at it, then wrote, "Do we have to fight to earn it?" The pen trembled slightly in his hand, and then he wrote one more line: "Tomorrow, I'll find out." The studio was quieter than usual. No live audience, no panelists, no laughter, no applause signs. Just a single chair in the center of the stage and the unmistakable tension of two public figures preparing to face off again. But this time stripped of spectacle. The room had been dimmed deliberately, the cameras set to close, intimate angles. The lighting was softer than yesterday, almost cinematic. It wasn't the view anymore. It was something else, a reckoning. Backstage, Prince Harry arrived without his usual entourage. No publicist, no assistant, no security visible, though undoubtedly nearby. He wore a gray suit this time, no tie, more casual, more human. He didn't smile. He didn't wave. He walked straight to the dressing room they had prepared and sat down quietly. The stage manager knocked 10 minutes later. "They're ready." He nodded once and stood up. In his pocket was a single folded sheet of paper, his own notes, handwritten the night before. But whether he'd read them or not, he didn't know yet. On stage, Whoopi was already seated when he walked in. No standing ovation, no handshake, just a silent acknowledgement as Harry sat across from her, the low hum of the studio equipment the only sound between them. A producer counted down silently with their fingers. 3, 2, 1. Fade in. The conversation begins. Whoopi spoke first. "Prince Harry, thank you for coming back." Harry looked at her, not coldly, but not warmly either. Measured. "I came because unfinished conversations sit like weights," he said, "and because yesterday wasn't the ending I wanted." A beat. "Nor I," Whoopi admitted. They paused. Then she said, "Let's talk." The first 5 minutes, controlled terrain. They began carefully, like two fencers testing the range. They spoke about the documentary, about veterans, about mental health. No sparks, not yet. But then Whoopi turned slightly in her chair, angling herself not toward the camera, but toward him. "You know, I've been thinking a lot about yesterday," she said. "About what I said, about what you said." Harry nodded. So let me ask directly. Why do you think so many people, even those who supported you in the beginning, are now turning away?" Harry didn't flinch. "Because people are tired of pain," he said, "and we keep reminding them of it." "Do you think that's fair to them?" He considered that. "No," he said slowly, "but it's honest, and sometimes honesty and fairness don't come in the same package." Whoopi nodded, the corner of her mouth twitching slightly, an almost smile. "And do you think you've ever been unfair to your family?" she asked. The air changed. Again, the temperature rises. Harry leaned forward, elbows resting on his knees, his voice low but steady. Yes, I've been angry. I've been impulsive. I've said things that, if I could reword today, I would. Whoopi's eyebrows lifted. That's the first time I've heard you say that. He didn't blink. Maybe it's the first time someone asked without trying to win. That landed. Then he added, but I don't regret speaking out, because silence helped kill my mother. And just like that, the line was drawn again. Whoopi's voice was quiet now. Do you really believe the institution was responsible for Diana's death? Harry met her eyes. I believe a system built on access, on manipulation, on profit over people, made it inevitable. And you see that system still at work? Every time my wife is called a liar for sharing her trauma, every time my children are reduced to headlines, every time someone says he wanted privacy, why is he talking again? As if healing is meant to be silent. The turning point, Whoopi inhaled deeply. I said something yesterday that I shouldn't have said. A word. Boy. Harry didn't look away. I don't know what you meant by it, he said, but I know what it felt like. And I'm sorry, she said. Clearly, directly, truly. He nodded. The tension in his shoulders softened, a fraction. Then he said, I'm not angry that you challenged me. I'm angry that you did it like everyone else does, like the story's already written. Whoopi sat back. Because that's what it feels like for you, like no one's willing to see the whole picture? Exactly, he said. And what's the whole picture, Harry? He hesitated, then almost whispering, a man who lost his mother to a camera lens, a husband trying to protect his wife from the same fate, a father who wants his kids to grow up with truth, even if it's complicated. And, he paused, and someone who still doesn't know if telling the truth is worth the damage it leaves behind. The human moment silence. Then Whoopi said very quietly, that's the first time I've seen you scared. Harry looked at her. I'm always scared, he said. I just wear better suits now. A half laugh from Whoopi, soft, real. Then she said, so what now? He unfolded the paper from his pocket, looked down at it, then back up, and without reading it, he tore it in half. I think we just did it, he said. The final minutes, they stood. This time he extended his hand. She took it. The camera slowly pulled back. No music, no graphics, just two people in a conversation that finally stopped being about sides and started being about understanding. Online reaction, mixed but moved. The internet was less cruel this time, less divided. Harry returns. Whoopi apologizes. The conversation clips circulated of Harry saying, healing is not meant to be silent. Of Whoopi saying, I'm sorry, truly. Of the torn paper. Late-night hosts made jokes, but respectfully. Journalists called it historic daytime television. Psychologists wrote threads on public conflict resolution. The BBC called it an uncharacteristically raw and redemptive American moment. But the most liked tweet of the day was simple. 2 adults, 2 apologies, 0 screaming. More of this, please. It had been 48 hours since the second interview aired, and the world hadn't stopped talking. But something had shifted. No longer were the headlines gleefully reporting a royal meltdown or a talk show takedown. Now the tone was different. Reflective, curious, even respectful. Prince Harry and Whoopi Goldberg show the world what accountability looks like. New York Times, from clash to conversation, a televised turning point. The Atlantic, when royals and rebels sit down, the world listens. Time. It wasn't just about 2 public figures anymore. It was about how the world witnessed conflict and resolution. Montecito, Harry's garden. Harry sat on a wooden bench in his garden, watching Archie chase butterflies through the flowers. The late afternoon sun cast long shadows across the grass. A phone buzzed on the bench beside him. He let it ring twice before answering. Hello? Hey, it was Whoopi. He smiled. Just a little. Didn't expect to hear from you so soon. I figured I owed you a real call, not a camera and a countdown. He nodded into the silence. Do you regret it? She asked. No, he said. Not anymore. Me neither. Another pause. I think we surprised people. she said. I think we surprised ourselves, he replied. She chuckled. You always this philosophical after trauma? He laughed. Only when I haven't slept. They sat in silence for a moment. Then she said, You still want the last one? Harry tilted his head thoughtfully. No, he said. I think for once I want to listen. London, Buckingham Palace. In a private sitting room, King Charles watched the second interview on a muted screen. Advisors had already briefed him, but he insisted on seeing it himself. He sat alone. The part that caught his attention wasn't the apology or even the mention of Diana. It was when Harry said, Maybe I don't want to be understood anymore. Maybe I just want to be respected for trying. The king exhaled sharply and whispered, So do I, son. So do I. Back in New York, the View's post-mortem meeting producers huddled in the control room, debriefing what had become the most-watched daytime broadcast in a decade. Linda, the executive producer, flipped through a folder of analytics. Ratings tripled, social media engagement through the roof, viewer sentiment 74% positive. Sponsors? Coming back. Someone asked, What's next? Linda paused. We take the win, she said. Then we shut up. Let the silence be louder than the noise for once. At home, Meghan's study, Meghan sat at her desk watching the replay again. But not of the confrontation, of the second sit-down. She paused at the frame where Harry quietly folded and tore his notes. Her fingers hovered over the trackpad, and then she opened a blank document. Title, Choosing Grace. She began to type. 3 days later, a letter goes public. A statement appears on both Whoopi's and Harry's social media accounts. Identical, jointly written. We came into that studio as opponents. We left as something closer to allies. The truth is messy, pain doesn't follow scripts, and healing isn't always graceful. But if you watch those moments unfold and saw two people trying, failing, apologizing, and trying again, then maybe you saw yourself too. This wasn't about royalty. It wasn't about ratings. It was about real people, real anger, and real listening. Thank you for watching. Thank you for holding us accountable. And thank you for letting us be human. Harry and Whoopi. The response is overwhelming. Journalists call it unprecedented. Activists cite it in workshops on public accountability. Parents show it to their teenagers. Churches mention it in sermons. Therapists recommend it to couples. And late-night hosts, for once, they tell no jokes because somehow, this time, it mattered. Closing scene, a studio, months later. Whoopi walks onto the set of The View as usual. She's greeted by applause, smiles, and the usual banter. But near her dressing room mirror, there's a small frame photo. Not of her Oscar, not of a movie premiere, not even of the royal walk-off. Just a still from that quiet moment. 2 chairs, 2 people, no lights in their eyes, no agenda in their hands, just words in the space between them. A reminder that sometimes the most powerful performance is letting the other person speak.